sprite sheets are an image file which contains all of the frames for a specific animation. They are heavily used in gaming for both HTML5 and Flash games for performance reasons. In this lesson, we'll see how to export a sprite sheet from Flash Professional. So here on my stage, we can see that we have a little figure here, and I've got this labeled as man, and this is a movie clip symbol. And you can't really see the animation that's going on within it, but the animation on the stage simply moves him from left to right. If we double click on him, we can see that he's composed of many parts, and he's actually an armature, as we can see by this layer here. And there is his animation cycle. Going back out to the stage, we can test this by going Control, Test Movie, Test. So we can see the basic animation sequence. So right now, I've just exported this by testing it as a SWF. But what if we need this as a sprite sheet? Well, to do that, we can actually click on the movie clip symbol instance, and then right-click to get this humongous menu here. And if we scroll down, we can see one of these last items is Generate Sprite Sheet. So if we click that, we can choose which instances we actually want to use to generate within this sprite sheet. So you can put multiple images within a sprite sheet, multiple instances of different movie clips. We only have one right here, so that's the only one that's chosen. But we can see that it lasts for 40 frames. We can see the frame rate and the actual duration. We can actually also have the sprite sheet preview here, which shows us what's going to be generated. So we can see that it's just one big image file with a variety of different poses that we can then use to animate within some other application. If we preview this, we can actually see how this actual sprite sheet would generate and how it would work. So some of these options down here define how this is going to be exported and to what exact sprite sheet data formats. Because not only does a sprite sheet generate this particular image with all these different poses in it, but it also generates usually a little XML file or a JSON file or something like that, which defines exactly everything about the timing and the location and the clipping of each specific image or pose. So let's have a look at this output information here. We can choose to auto size, which normally works quite well, or there could be specific dimensions that are needed for a particular sprite sheet. So for instance, here, if we roll over, we can see that Stage 3D supports square dimensions with a maximum stage of 2048 by 2048. So auto size usually works quite fine. We can also just simply change the width and the height through here. We can choose whether it's a PNG or a JPEG that gets exported, and choose whether it has a background color or not. In this case, there is no background color defined. We can choose the algorithm, whether basic or max rex. So we can see here, if we choose max rex, it's going to pack it in a little bit of a different way. So let's choose basic again, and you can see how that works. For data format, you can choose between JSON, JSON array, Sparrow version 1 or 2, Starling, Cocos 2D version 2 or 3, or Easel.js. So Starling is what I have selected here simply because that's a framework that is a 2D Stage 3D framework used in Flash Player. So we can import this into Starling and use it as an accelerated Stage 3D two-dimensional animation. We can choose to trim. So this is going to pack everything in really tight for us. We can also choose to stack frames. So we can see here that we have the frames being stacked. This little indicator shows up. We can also choose to include some extra border padding and shape padding. So if we choose shape padding, we can see that each particular shape gets a whole bunch of padding around it. Usually the defaults, if you're using stuff for something specific like Starling, the defaults are going to output something that's going to be usable for Starling. So we can also browse, where do we want to output this? So I'm just going to choose the default, and let's hit export. All right, so it's a very quick process when we actually do this. And if we look inside of our bits here, we can see that here's our ping sequence. So let's open that up. And here's the actual image that gets produced. So we can see it's just basically one big ping with all these different gestures. We also have a little XML file, and we'll open that up in Notepad. And we can see that this XML file simply defines all these different properties, like the X and Y location, width and height of each specific subtexture in terms of Starling. If we actually exported this using some other format other than Starling, the XML would of course look different for that particular framework. Note that we can also go into our library and click on a particular movie clip symbol instance, right-click, and generate a sprite sheet from there as well. So this has been a lesson on how to generate sprite sheets from Flash Professional CS6.